Good evening from the south of Israel. This is Laser Brody with Rebbe Nachman's Tales. We're starting tonight a brand new tale, The Merchant and the Pauper. And this is one of Rebbe Nachman's most cryptic allegories. And in it encapsulates the entire history of our people. And it's a beautiful portrait of dedication and simplicity and purity, the national characteristics that is our potential. And we fill up our potential, then we'll bring correction to the world, and Hashem will bring us full redemption. This also shows the cycle of exile and redemption. And we'll do our best to see what we can glean out of it to bring ourselves closer to Hashem. Because Rebbe Nachman had an ultimate purpose. It just wasn't to tell stories, but rather than giving direct, what we call in Yiddish, Musa Shmuzin, direct lectures, ethics lectures, he told us stories. And cryptic stories, we have to use our mind, use our imagination, and really call up the reserves of our spiritual and our intellectual prowess, our intellectual prowess that's above the intellect, but try to plug in to the Emunah intellect, divine intellect, our spiritual awareness as much as we can to understand these stories. So I'm going to begin, and we'll go slowly, and we'll save the questions to the end. And we'll see on the way where there are significant things. And mostly tonight, could just tell the story, part of the story. We're not going to finish the whole story tonight. It's a long one. But when we see significant landmarks of things we have to see what Rebbe Nachman is telling us, then we'll stop and elaborate on them. So Rebbe Nachman begins the tale. Once there was a merchant. A merchant, he calls in Yiddish a burger. A burger is referred for a wealthy merchant and from an outlying town. But what translates simply as a merchant, because he was a well-to-do merchant, and he was the upper middle class, and he was extremely rich, and he had a vast amount of merchandise, did a lot of commerce and sold a lot of different things, and he had promissory notes and letters of credit circulating all over the world. Even back in Rebbe Nachman's time, he was an internationally known businessman. He had ships on the sea, and people knew him all over in foreign countries, and he lived in a great big mansion. He had the lower apartment that he rented out to a pauper. And this pauper was completely poor. And so that on most of the house was occupied by the merchant and his wife, and the pauper lived below him. And just as the merchant was very, very rich, the pauper was very, very poor. They had one thing in common. Neither of them had any children. And the merchant, no children, and the pauper, no children. So once the merchant had a dream. In a dream, he dreamed that a group of people came to him, to his house, and they were taking out packages like movers, taking packages out of his house. And he couldn't understand. He didn't order any mover. He wasn't moving anywhere. So he asked them, "What are you doing?" And they replied, "We're carrying everything you own, and we're carrying it downstairs to the pauper." And things are going to become confusing. The paupers will become rich, and the rich are going to become poor. We will see something that we saw in the clever and the simple, where Hashem is showing us that fortunes could be turned around one day, because doesn't go according to nature. It may be outside of Israel, things look like they're happening according to nature. But within Israel, within the Jewish people, there is no nature. There's no nature. Someone that could see never make a living, be completely rich, someone who thinks very intelligent, very capable, is poverty-stricken. So the rich man, the merchant, when he saw these movers were coming in, taking out packages, it upset him very much. And he was angry. He was indignant to taking all my wealth and giving it to the pauper. He didn't want that. But there were too many. They were big, strong porters, big, strong movers, and he couldn't get angry at them because there were a lot of them, and he was only one, and he couldn't even handle one of them, much less the whole group. So he just swallowed his pride and didn't say anything. So they continued making packages, packing up all his belongings and all his wares and all his goods and everything. They left his mansion completely empty, and everything went to the pauper, went downstairs to the pauper. So the merchant was upset very, very much. But meanwhile, he woke up in a sweat and he saw, wow, it's a dream. So even though that he saw that it was only a dream, and thanks Hashem that his all belongings were still there, everything was intact, nothing was missing, it was still, his heart was palpitating at this dream. This dream was very upsetting. So he couldn't get the dream out of his mind and upset him severely. It was all the time like a woodpecker in the back of his head, knocking away his brain. So the pauper and his wife, they would, the merchant and his wife were benevolent, they were charitable, and they always made sure that the pauper and his wife had enough to eat. And what they did, they would give them presents of food or presents of money and what they needed, but they would do it in a nice way, not to make them people feel that they felt better than them. But now, after the dream, he figured well, maybe second he's not helping them enough. So he dreamt that Hashem is going to take all his riches away and give it to the pauper. So he bent over backwards to worry about the pauper and his wife even more. So whenever the poor man and the pauper would come into his house, though, his face expression would drop. He would face what we say in Hebrew, it would ashen. It would turn the color of ash, and he would lose the color in his face. And because every time he saw them, he'd remember the dream. He saw them very vividly in the dream, that they were the recipients of all his riches. So the pauper and his wife, they would go to the house, but they would go to the house completely innocently to express their appreciation for the recent gifts of money or food or clothing, whatever the merchant and his wife gave them. So once the pauper's wife came to the house, and he gave her a donation, and his expression changed as soon as he saw her. It became stricken with fear. She saw he was stricken. He was almost in a panic mode, but he was quivering and he couldn't talk. And she asked him, "Excuse me, my honored merchant, my honored neighbor, to tell me why does your face change? Your countenance drops whenever you see us. When we come into your house, and you can be drastically changed. It's not normal." So he says, "Okay, I'll be honest with you." And he told her the whole dream. He had such a whole dream, and said since he's had this dream, his heart hasn't stopped palpitating. The palpitation of the heart. So she replied to him, "Did the dream take place on such and such a night?" And he said, "Yes." "Oh, well, what about it?" And she said, "On that same night, I also had a dream." She said, "And that dreamed that all of a sudden I'm a very wealthy person, and people came to my house, and they were making packages with all my possessions." And yes, I asked them, "Where are you taking this?" They said, "We're taking this to the rich merchant who has now become a pauper." So things turn around. So now they're taking her possessions and taking them back to the pauper. So she says to him, she says, "Look, my dream is ridiculous. So is yours. So why pay attention to a dream? Uh, it doesn't make any difference. It's not reality." So the merchant, now that he heard her dream, he became all the more confused and all the more frightened because he heard her dream as well. And he saw that it seems that his wealth and his property are going to go to the pauper, and that the pauper's poverty will come to him. He interpreted the pauper's dream that not that he's getting his possessions back because he's now poor. No, but what he gave them their riches, and they're giving him boxes and boxes and boxes of poverty. So he's becoming needy. So he says he's still even more upset. Then time passed, and the merchant's wife, she took a trip, coach. Now went for a tour in the outback, a tour in the mountains and the meadows, and she would take her lady friends with her, but she would never slight the pauper's wife, and she took the pauper's wife with her also. So they were out on a nice drive in the country and traveling along their tour. So meanwhile, on the road, a general and his army, they passed. They got off the road as their entourage, the carriage with the women came there, and the general saw that the women were traveling, and he gave orders, "Take one of the women out of the carriage." So the soldiers stopped. They stopped the carriage, and they took out the pauper's wife. Of all the women, that they left the merchant's wife, they left her other lady friends alone. They took the pauper's wife, and and they abducted her, and they carried her back. They took to the general. So now she's with his army, but she's abducted by a general and army. Who could free her? And she was a God-fearing person. That is, she was a very upright woman and very modest, and she had fear of Hashem. And she was not willing to listen to the proposals of the general. The general, what he had different designs what to do with the pauper's wife. She was apparently a very attractive woman, and she wouldn't listen to him at all. And she just cried and pleaded and poured a great deal. And since she was so God-fearing, they incarcerated her. But the other women continued their trip back home, but without the pauper's wife. So now they come home. Pauper says, "Where's my wife?" So she was abducted. So the pauper cried so much, and he beat his head against the wall, and he was constantly mourning for his wife bitterly. So one day, the merchant came downstairs. He passed by the pauper's house, and he heard the pauper crying so bitterly, and boom, 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 beating his head against the wall. So he went in, he barged in, he asked him, he says, "Just going to hurt himself." I said, "Do something for him." He says, "My friend, why are you crying so intensely?" So he answered, "Why shouldn't I weep? What do I have left? Some people have wealth. I don't have any wealth. Some people have children. I don't have children. The only thing that I had was my beloved wife, and now she's taken away from me. Why should I not weep?" So the merchant's heart was very touched. Rebbe Nachman says in Yiddish, it was angehabt. Angehabt, that it was his heart was captured by the poor man's sorrow. And the merchant, he couldn't see. He couldn't see his he couldn't see any of his brethren in pain. So when he saw his bitterness, merchant did something, maybe you could call it reckless, maybe you could call it brave, depends on how you look at it, but it looked like an insanity. And he went and asked which city the general lives, and they told him, and he journeyed there, and then he did something really extraordinary. Once again, you could translate Rebbe Nachman's words in Yiddish. The original story is in Yiddish, then translated in Hebrew, and now we're translating in English. You can either translate it wild or reckless or shocking or impetuous or impulsive, but that's all these things together. So what did he do? He walked right into the general's house. Here's the merchant, and he walked right into the general's house, walked past the guards into the general's house, and the generals had sentries posted at every entrance to the house. And because the merchant was so upset, and he knew that he wanted to take the pauper's wife, he wanted to restore her to her husband, and he didn't pay any attention to the guards. He just went with singleness of purpose. He didn't care, whatever happens, happens. And to the guards, they were so shocked and so confused that somebody's got the gall to walk right past them. They didn't know what to do. It kind of reminds us of Israel attacking Tehran. You can see there are times that the preemptive strike in the Six-Day War, the preemptive strike recently. This is the type of thing that Rebbe Nachman says, that when someone believes in what he's doing, then he walks right in. So stop here for a moment and look what Rebbe Nachman is alluding to. Mentioned at the beginning that Rebbe Nachman is telling the annals of our people. So who is the rich merchant? The rich merchant that cares so much about every one of his brethren. That alludes to Moses. That not only to Moses, but to the tzaddik of each generation. The tzaddik of each generation is compared to a shepherd that looks after every one of the sheep. And why was Moses chosen to lead the people out? Why was King David chosen as king of Israel? Hashem saw what they would do. They would put the flock, they would go to a new pasture, and first they would take the baby lambs and put them on the soft grass. They would eat the soft grass first. Then they took the ewes, the mothers, and let them eat the medium-sized grass. And then the rams, the rough ones, that they had the tough grass in the end. So Hashem said, if they can tend my flock, so they tend their flock so well that they could tend my flock. And so we could see that Moses is seeing there's a lost lamb. A lost lamb. Who's the lost lamb? A lost lamb is the merchant's wife. The pauper's wife. It could be a little confused. Lost the pauper's wife. So he goes right ahead. What this alludes to, when Moses went down to Egypt to rescue the Jewish people from bondage, he walked right into Pharaoh's palace. But he said, well, what are you, great? Moses walking into the lion's den? That they could kill him. He didn't kill him. He had what the Torah says, Kishem Hashem Nikah Lecha V'yomim Lecha. when the name of Hashem is upon someone, that the enemies they fall away in fear. The Lubavitcher Rebbe took that particular passage and he interpreted it as tefillin. And this is why the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1967, May of 1967, 1 month before the Six-Day War, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he commanded all his Hasidim go and put tefillin on everybody. Because the name of Shem is upon you, name of Shem upon you in the tefillin, the head tefillin, there's 21 times it's written Hashem's name. And 21 times, 21 is Ekyeh. That is the holy name of divine providence, divine direction. When Hashem is with a person, ki eyemach, that Hashem said to Moses, Hashem said to Joshua, I will be with you. And with these 21 names, it means Hashem is going to be with that person. When Hashem illuminates the light off that person's forehead because of the tefillin, then the enemies, they just fall away. So here, what Rebbe Nachman is telling us, when the merchant walked in the general's house, doesn't matter how outnumbered he was, he had the light of Hashem off his head, and they were dumbstruck. They'd fear him. And it's apparently what happened. People are explaining the recent Iran, people taking credit. Oh, it's us, and it's the army, and it's the Mossad here. Okay, Hashem made the miracle look like it was natural, but it's far from natural. We saw the next day, Hashem says, "Hey, take credit for yourself." The next day, we lost 6 soldiers in Gaza. And here was 12-day war with Iran. And it was what they told us before the war, that we'd have to be prepared for 2 weeks with no electricity and stock up on food and stock up on water, that maybe a week there won't be water, all these type of things. And the only thing that happened in the whole war, for 8 hours, half of Ashdod was without electricity. And that's it. And that was repaired. That was repaired right away, same day. So you can see when the name of Hashem is on someone, then everyone fears them. Everyone fears. So if a person is connected with Hashem, if a person has Hashem, you can walk into the lion's den. And this we see that when Daniel walked into the lion's den, they purred because Daniel had the name of Hashem reflecting from him. So here we see this, if we understand, what Rebbe Nachman explaining us, that these soldiers, how they just let them walk in. Nobody can walk in the general's house. Nobody can walk in Pharaoh's palace. You know how many guards you have to go through? How many ministers have to go through? Moses walked right in. Why? To rescue the Jewish people. Because it was non-negotiable. He's going to go, let my people go. And it told Pharaoh right to his face. And he didn't mince words. He didn't speak nice. He didn't flatter Pharaoh. No, spoke to him right away. Okay, so the general, that he abducted the pauper's wife. Who is the pauper's wife? The pauper's wife, that's the people of Israel. And we'll see that the pauper's wife, he abducted the pauper. This is indicative of all our exiles when a foreign nation, sometimes it's the Romans, sometimes it's the Greeks, sometimes the Persian Medians, and sometimes it's Edom, as it is now, since the temple is not yet rebuilt, that the Jewish people are in exile, and they're abducted by these foreigners that rule over them. And this is why we wait for Moshiach, because Moshiach is uplift from all this. So Rebbe Nachman is indicating all this. Here you see Rebbe Nachman is starting to weave the cloth of Moshiach. Rebbe Nachman is making this beautiful, he's knitting this beautiful batik, and a picture is coming alive. We'll see the picture come more and more alive. Okay, so the merchant walked right past the sentries, and they're shocked and they're confused. They're disoriented. They don't know what to do. And they look at one another and said, how'd this guy get here? But before they answered, the merchant went right into the room where the pauper's wife was lying. She was trapped in this room. And he woke her up. She was sleeping. And he said, come quick. And she caught sight of him, but she took fright. She couldn't believe he was there. He said, don't say a word. Come with me right away. So she went with him. And then now, once again, now he's with the pauper's wife. They're abducted and goes right past them. Can you imagine an Israeli commando going into Khan Yunis or in Gaza City and finding one of the abducted captives take captive, and in front of all of Hamas walks right out? This is just what Rebbe Nachman is telling us. Okay, that if we have enough fear in Hashem, if we have enough light of Hashem reflecting from us, this is what we're capable of doing. So she went with him, and again they passed the guards. They went right outside, and only then did he come out and realize what he did. Well, he couldn't believe what he did. Now that it's over, the mission's over, he realized that there certainly is going to be a big uproar. The general's not going to let him get away with this. So, of course, there was a big commotion, as he thought. Now there's a big commotion at the generals. Okay, Khomeini is going crazy. How did these people come behind the lines in Tehran? So the merchant went and he hid himself in a pit where there was rainwater. As you can translate, it's a pit with rainwater. Sometimes in the Ukraine, they have these. It's like called a cistern. It's different between a well. A well is connected to an underground spring, but a cistern gathers the rainwater and sometimes becomes connected to underwater source also. But this is the first source of water. We're not going to see, give you a little tip off, we're going to see seven sources of water. And in a moment, we'll see what that means. Okay, so they hid in this rainwater pit. Okay, maybe a reservoir, you might want to call it, or a cistern. Cistern is probably the best translation, uh, until the commotion lied down. And they were there for 2 days. Now, just imagine here is the merchant with the beautiful wife of the pauper, and they're alone for 2 days. Okay, but she saw the great self-sacrifice that he did to get her out. He took his own life in his hand. And she swore by Hashem that any good fortune she has, that if she has whatever change of good fortune and Hashem decides to give her riches or some type of abundance or supreme grandeur, her status goes up, any success, that all her success she will share with the merchant. And she's not going to withhold anything he needs. So if he should want to take for himself all of her success, that's fine. That's fine. She gets fine. She says, well, what is different? I'll just stay as I was before. Hashem gives me riches, and the merchant wants to take all my riches. That's fine because he deserves them. He saved my life. So now, when you make an oath, you have to have a witness. So she's looking around. There's nobody around. They're hidden. They're hidden. And she says, the water pit, the water cistern. So she says to the cistern, you're the witness. She made the cistern the witness. Okay, so after 2 days that they hid there, they decided they went further and further. So the merchant understood that in the next hiding place, they were all going to look for him. So they came to a bathhouse that was a mikveh. And the second hiding place was in a mikveh. Mikveh is a ritual bath, not just a regular bathhouse, but a ritual bath. And once again, she recalled the great sacrifice and the suffering that he endured for his sake. And once again, she swore as before that all her good fortune, she's going to share everything with the merchant, whatever he wants, whatever he needs, and nobody to witness her oath. So she made the oath that the mikveh, the water's the mikveh, this is now hers. So the first is a cistern, now the mikveh. The mikveh is her second witness. You have to understand that they're all these places, they're hiding 2 days in these places. And while they're hiding, in case in the back of your mind, you understand they are both under impeccable personal holiness, impeccable deportment, impeccable modesty. They don't dream of touching the other person's pinky finger. Okay. But they understood from the second hiding place, from the mikveh, that again, the general is going to be searching for them, so they better get down the road. So this happened several more times. And each time they hit another place in 7 different types of water. First, it was in the cistern, then it was in the mikveh, and then they found a pond with this murky water, a pond, and then a spring, underwater spring, and then a creek, and then a river, till they finally got to the sea. They find every place where they hid, she remembered his self-sacrifice. She appreciated his self-sacrifice. What is Rebbe Nachman telling us? It says this is the cardinal characteristic of our people is gratitude. You don't forget a tiny favor that someone does for you. To thank a person, to have gratitude, in Hebrew is lahodot. The word Yehudi, a Jew, literally means a person with gratitude. So, you can't have gratitude to Hashem. We owe gratitude for every heartbeat, for every breath we take, for every brain impulse. Because person, what's life and death? The difference between life and death is one heartbeat. So have to appreciate it to Hashem. So people take it for granted. And they have a sense of entitlement. That's a spoiled person. A spoiled person is a sense of entitlement that he or she thinks they don't have to say thank you. And that is how people raise spoiled children. It's not from too much love. Don't ever think that you can give a child too much love. Don't ever think that you can give your spouse enough love. There's unlimited love to give them. But it's gratitude when they're thing I mean, any one of the whether it could be a child or it could be a spouse thinks that they deserve something, and when they think they deserve something they don't say thank you for it. Okay, that is a sense of entitlement, and that makes a person spoiled. Sense of entitlement is the opposite of gratitude. The person with gratitude is a person that I deserve nothing. He's pleased with everything he has of another day of life, another moment of life, appreciates every single moment of life. And of course, the pauper's wife, with her, even though she's poor, Rebbe Nachman is showing that her character is impeccable. It's showing that she's poor. She represents the Jewish people. They're poor and they're downtrodden, but showing the impeccable character, this characteristic of gratitude. And she has gratitude to the merchant for what he's doing. This is a correction. Rabbi Nachman made. How many times is it the Israelites they saw Moses do so many miracles? How many Moses do so many miracles? The 10 plagues and the crossing of the Red Sea, and then once in the desert they cried and complained. And this is Rabbi Nachman. So that's not the way it should be. It should be we have to act like the pauper's wife and appreciate everything, even though he gave us. But that's what Moses did. Moses saved them from slavery in Egypt. Oh, they forgot about that. And they said, oh, what we had in Egypt, we had good food and good fish. And what do we have out here in the desert? Nothing but the manna. Well, the manna is heaven sent bread. They didn't appreciate that. So Rebbe Nachman is doing what it's a national soul correction where we have to learn gratitude. He's showing us how important gratitude is. So they come to these 7 sources of water. What is Rebbe Nachman telling us with these 7 sources of water? If we notice every one of these 7 sources of water, we said the second was a specific mikveh. Okay, but if someone doesn't go to a built mikveh, if someone goes to a cistern, if someone goes to a river, someone goes to a wellspring, someone goes to the sea, they're all kosher mikvahs. They're all kosher for uplifting a person from ritual purity. So every place that the pauper's wife made her oath from was a place of ritual purity, which showed that she was speaking from a pure mouth, a pure soul. She purified body and soul. And the purification of body and soul was shown that even though they had every chance, heaven forbid, to commit the unsightly act, they did not do it. They both maintained, because we said that the merchant represents the tzaddik of the generation, the righteous generation, Moses, and she represents the people of Israel. Okay, so they acted impeccably. So now she has 7 witnesses, 7 witnesses of water on a higher level. On a couple of these 7 witnesses are the 7 lower spheres. After the higher spheres are Chachma, Bina, and Dat, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And lower spheres, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut. These 7 bodies of water, pure water, they correspond to the 7 upper waters in the spheres. I'm not going to go into that, but this is just an illusion. All right. So every place she went, she made her oath. This is it. That's the oath on 7 waters. This is the oath on 7 waters. Okay. So they kept on going, and they came to the sea. Now, once they came to the sea, the merchant, he was at home because he was a great merchant. He was an international merchant, and he knew all the sea lanes. He knew all the lanes. He knew it was a ferry. He knew how to get from continent to continent. So he was at home. He was at home on the sea. So right away, he negotiated to get to his country, and he took her, and they traveled home till they finally brought her back to the pauper, and there was great, great rejoicing. Okay, that's the first part of our story. We now go on to the second part. We'll continue on the second part. So now they get a big reward. So the merchant, because he'd done such a heroic, such a valiant act, and in addition to that, he withstood a trial. He passed a test of the evil inclination that he didn't touch her, because all the time he saw Hashem. Shiviti Hashem l'negdi tamid, what King David says in Psalm 16, I see Hashem before me always. Rather than looking at her beauty, he looked at Hashem's name. He looked at Hashem's name. He said, okay, her beauty, it comes from Hashem. Yeah, Hashem. I'm only allowed to touch my wife. She's back home. Can't touch her. I says, I'm going to do the mitzvah, the pure mitzvah of freeing a captive, rescuing a captive. This is one of the biggest mitzvahs in the Torah, to rescue a captive. And he all the time remembered Hashem. He did not forget Hashem for a moment. And this is what King David says in Psalm 16 again, Shiviti Hashem Negdi, Tamid. I place Hashem before me always. So we see that the merchant, this is what he did. So you can see a merchant. Why is he called a merchant? Why is he called a merchant? We say, well, this guy's a perfect tzaddik. Why does Rebbe Nachman call him a merchant? Well, he knows a merchant knows how to bargain. So what is the tzaddik? What type of bargaining does he do? All the time does plea bargaining to Hashem. That if the evil side says to throw the book at the Jewish people, they've done this wrong, they've done that wrong. And the merchant, who's the tzaddik generation, he defends them. And this is an allusion to after the fiasco of the golden calf. And Moses went up to Mount Sinai again for the second time, 40 days and 40 nights. He didn't eat, didn't drink, and he just plea bargained with Hashem. Plea bargain. This is the why it's a merchant. That the tzaddik is no type of a merchant because he's also a middleman. He pleads the case of Israel because I said middleman. You don't have to go through Hashem. We could all go to Hashem directly, and go to Hashem directly. But people don't always do that, and people are not always on the level. So the tzaddik, why do you ask a tzaddik for a blessing? Because a tzaddik is always, he has a constant, what's called dvekas. He clings to Hashem always. And this is what the merchant did. And this is Rebbe Nachman telling him that he was remembered. He thought about, you could translate remembered, that he thought about, or he contemplated Hashem always. And he was rewarded. What was he rewarded for his holiness? That he and his wife, who previously were childless, the year they came back, they were rewarded with a son. They had a son. Well, the pauper's wife, she too was rewarded because she was just as virtuous as the merchant was. And because she withstood such a trial, look, the merchant was also a nice looking. Yeah, the Gemara talks about Moses, and Moses was tall and strong and mighty. Moses was very, very attractive. Okay, and she, in Song of Songs, King Solomon describes about the imagery of Israel, how beautiful she is, and that she says so appealing. So he didn't touch her. They all both looked at Hashem. They both saw Hashem. They totally overcome evil. So she was awarded with a daughter. Now, it was not just a regular daughter. She was a daughter, had unprecedented beauty, supreme beauty. She was so extraordinarily beautiful, unlike any human whatsoever. This is referring to when Hashem created Eve. Hashem created Eve so perfect because Eve was the only woman in the world she wasn't born out of a womb. She was born because Hashem created her. Hashem created her, and Hashem created her so perfect. She's the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman that ever lived. And then the Gemara describes other beautiful women that didn't come to Eve's level. But Sarah, Abraham's wife, Sarah was a gorgeous woman. Sarah, and then on down. Okay. And then Rachel, Jacob's wife, beautiful. So the Rebbe Nachman says in the story that she grew, that the people blessed her. People would see she's so beautiful, and they would say, give her this novel blessing. Oh, she should only grow up. She should only grow up to maturity. Why grow up to maturity? Because she was so beautiful that they were afraid that someone would cast an evil eye on her, and they cast an evil eye on her that maybe something could happen to her, and they were very afraid of that. So people would bless her that she should grow up to maturity, and that she should be healthy. So we go on further. The word got out as she was a young teenager, all that she's so strikingly beautiful. People from all over the world would come and see her. You're like one of the seven wonders of the world. That Pauper's daughter, Pauper White Kid, this beautiful daughter, she was so astonishing in her beauty, people would come to see her. So what they do, when they came just for seeing her, they would give the pauper gifts. They do the privilege. Thank you for letting me see you. They would joy. They give him gifts. So it didn't take long that the pauper just became rich. He had all this money. And as for the merchant, He entered his mind. Wait a second. Maybe he can overcome the dream. What's happened? That since he's got a son and they have a daughter, with the dream that the money be transferred from one to the other. If the son marries the daughter, what does it matter? It stays in between them. It's all in the family, all in the mishpacha. It's all in the family. So they decided that maybe this is what the dream meant, that the pauper's wife and the merchant, they said maybe the dream is what, that we should make a shidduch, we should make a match with my son and your daughter. And Baruch Hashem gave us the blessing, son and daughter. So they'll be mixed in one match and we'll be one family. One family comes together. So now who cares? All the money anyway we go. Is it this is Jewish parents, they leave all the money to the kids. They give everything to the kids. Everything to the kids. And what they just the kids should have, yes, the kids should have, and they should not lack. So what does it matter? We're going to give everything to the kids anyway. So they'll have everything. And it doesn't matter whether the money comes from me, the money comes from you. It's all going to go to the kids. So at that time, one time, this is what all the merchants thinking. He did very, very healthy thought. The pauper's wife came to the merchant, and he told her that he's got this desire to make a match between them, and this way that the dreams will be realized, my dream and your dream, and have a good outcome from the dream. You have to understand other things. Rebbe Nachman is teaching us something else about dreams. Whenever you have a dream, tell someone, if you want an interpretation, tell someone who loves you. Tell someone, your spiritual guide, that he loves you, okay? And then he'll right away give a good interpretation to the dream, because the dreams go, the Gemara says, according to the interpretation. You could take one dream and then interpret right away. A person came to me and they said, had a dream that they were bitten by a snake. Another person was a poisonous snake and got killed. The dream that the Gemara talks about that. It means that the snake tried everything, but you woke up alive, which means that the evil inclination no longer has power of you, that you're going to live to overcome the evil inclination, and you're going to walk into Gan Eden. Where do we see this? We see this in the Gemara, Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, that he was the tzaddik of his generation. There was this poisonous snake that was bothering everyone, it was scaring everyone in the village. And Rabbi Hanina said, "Where's the snake?" So they told him, they said, there's the snake hole right there. There's the snake hole. So Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa took off his sandal and he put his heel over the hole, and the snake came and bit his heel. And right away, the snake died. He bit the tzaddik and the snake died. So Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa told the people, you see, it's not the snake that kills, it's sin that kills. Sin is the snake itself. That's evil inclination. So when does the evil inclination, the snake, have power over a person? When a person sins. And we see this all through here. Rebbe Nachman is showing us that here they had 14 days, 2 days in 7 different places, and they were all alone in solitude. A priori, we're not allowed to be alone in a room with a married person of the opposite sex. That's called yichud. We're not allowed to do that because temptation. You know, who could say that they don't have temptation? But they asked one of the big tzaddikim, when does a person get over temptation? He says, I don't know. I'm 93 and I've still got temptation. Okay, so I passed 110, 120. But when a person doesn't yield to temptation, he doesn't yield to the snake, and the snake dies. The evil inclination dies. That's good. That's what Shem wants. So the evil inclination only has power over us when we succumb to the evil inclination. When do we succumb to the evil inclination? Heaven forbid, is when we don't do what the merchant does. The merchant saw Hashem before him always. Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. I place Hashem before me always, in King David's words, once again from Psalm 16. And that's it. The person sees Hashem and asks himself, wait a second, Hashem doesn't want me to do that. I'm not going to do that. It doesn't matter. As soon as we tell ourselves that Hashem doesn't want us to do something, that's it. That kills temptation. Because a person has fantasies. What is evil inclination's art? His art is putting fantasies in a person. That's why the evil inclination calls the media and Netflix and all this. It puts fantasies. It's not the real world. It's not the real world. What are you looking at? What are you getting, excuse the expression, my brother, what are you getting all upset for? What all bothered? You're looking at a plasma screen. Oh, you see this image? It's an image. It's all imaginary. What can you do with an image? But you're getting all upset and all crazy. Remember Hashem. Hashem doesn't want you to look at that. Go put your eyes back in a Gemara and put your eyes back in the Torah and get them off the screen. As soon as you do that, no more evil inclination. This is Rebbe Nachman is showing us here. So now they interpret the dream, interpret it in a good way because it's not love. It's love. It's loving their neighbor type of love, loving their fellow Jew. Like it's not a bodily love, not what they call here, not physical love. It's emotional love. They have love for each other's family. Remember all the time that the merchant and his wife, they took care of the pauper, and his wife made sure they had enough meat, enough to on what to wear, whatnot, and Baruch Hashem. So they interpret the dream in a good way, and they decide, and she says right away, "You are giving me, my friend and brother, you are giving me the chance to fulfill my oath. Since Hashem gave me this magnificent daughter, and she's so beautiful, and I said, I'm not going to hold back any of my abundance from you. So I'm certainly not going to hold back my daughter from you. And yes, the son, and you will make them, I'm ready to make this match." Okay, so the son, meanwhile, the son and the daughter, they both learned in one schoolroom, and they learned language and other things, and the young people should learn. And people came to see the daughter, continued to come seeing the daughter because of her phenomenal beauty and kept bringing her riches and riches and riches. All right, so now the pauper became rich. So the old pauper is now no longer a pauper, he's rich. Meanwhile, the word of this girl's beauty is get amongst the gentry, the noble classes, the House of Lords hears that in this village there is this beautiful woman. So they put on their best wig, and the highbrows go and visit her. Now they see extremely marvelous, but oh, we can't marry. They want each one of these highbrows wants the girl for their son, but they can't take him because he's a commoner. So what do? They can't have a match with a commoner, and nobility can't match with him. So what they did, they exerted pressure on the ruler, and they said that they should enable, that the emperor should let this pauper, we're talking about the original pauper, do some kind of service so he could be uplifted. So they said, let's draft him into the army and let him serve the emperor, and he'll start, and he's now a servant to the emperor. So he's already not a simple pauper, not a simple Jewish pauper. So they drafted him into the army, and he became an ensign. An ensign is like a second lieutenant in the Navy. That's the lowest officer rank. In Russian, it's called a popolshik. A popolshik. That's right, Elisheva, a popolshik. Okay, that's what they call it. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but that's what Rebbe Nachman talks it in Russian. Rebbe Nachman he would speak Yiddish and Russian, okay, because from Breslov, but today's Ukraine. And this is the lowest officer rank. And afterwards, he graduate higher and higher and higher because the high officers, they too wanted the daughter. And for him, they wanted to be on a level. So they promoted him, so he'd be on their level. So now they don't have to go and marry a commoner's wife. They could marry an ensign's wife, a general or an admiral. Has to have an admiral's daughter, someone like him. So they brought him higher and higher and higher. And finally, he became a general. He was the second lieutenant, this ensign. Now he's a general in the army. So the nobility already wanted to have a match with him. A general, this is already a general in the army. But there was many of the noblemen, of the highbrows, the bigwigs that wanted them. And there were so many. They were all, they're falling over each other. Who's going to get to this girl first? But what they did, the nobility, they had a plan. Okay, every time we promote him, we bring him higher above the lower officers. No, he's not going to want the lower officers, but higher and higher and higher. So he was commander-in-chief of the army. So commander-in-chief of the army is like on the level of a minister. And meanwhile, the pauper's wife, she didn't listen to anything because the daughter had been betrothed to the merchant's son. And she knew this. So now the pauper, her husband, had become a general. He's now a general, and he became more and more successful. So now there's a general. The emperor sends him into battle, and he was successful every time. He's successful every single time. What's Rebbe Nachman telling us here? Here we see this pauper, and Rebbe Nachman doesn't tell us he was talented in anything. But what's his virtue? His virtue is his wife. His virtue is his wife. She's the people of Israel. He stays simple. He stays simple. This we're talking about maybe the two tribes, the tribe of Judah against the tribe of Ephraim. The tribe of Judah, they became big tzaddikim. The tribe of Ephraim, they ran after money and they ran after idolatry. And that's why the 10 tribes were exiled before Judah and Benjamin. Okay, so he becomes more and more successful and he wins his wars. He wins his wars. So the entire country, that decision, meanwhile, the emperor dies. So who's going to be emperor? The pauper who worked his way up, a general, he's now become a victorious general. He wins wars. Once again, by virtue, what did he win wars? By virtue of his virtuous wife. And that's what we sing in chapter 31 of Proverbs every Friday night. Eshet Chayil, woman of valor. Woman of valor. A man has to realize that when he's got a woman of valor at home, his success is because of her. His success, I always use the example that a man, you see him on the outside, he's the fuselage of the aircraft. The woman, she is the engine. Without that engine, you don't get off the ground. You have to understand. Because of her, he has this big success. And we'll soon see Rebbe Nachman stresses this all the more so. Okay, so the entire country now decides to make the pauper general, to make him emperor. So he became emperor. And now he waged wars. And he wins every war. He's successful in everything he does. And he conquers countries, and he wages more wars, and he's continually successful and conquers lands. And they saw the success as great, as the beauty of the world, and all the good fortune of the world, it seemed to be with him. So kings met together, and they agreed that he should be emperor over the entire world. And they gave him a document written with golden letters. It's a document written with golden letters that the kings, the flesh and blood kings, document with golden letters. What's gold? What's gold? What does the Torah say that the Torah says itself? That Hashem gave the Torah in black fire on white fire. That the letters of Torah are fire. But here, from the letter of flesh and blood generals, they are written in gold. Gold doesn't last. Rebbe Nachman says, one of two things happens to gold. Either Hashem takes the gold away from a person, or Hashem takes the person away from the gold. That the gold and the person, they don't stay together. Because we have a Yiddish expression that in a shroud there's no pockets, because you can't take it with you. You can only take your holiness and your good. But it's not the money you can take with you. It's only your good deeds, your uprightness. But there, this is we see. So this is indicative. It's telling if they gave him this letter of appointment in gold letters, it's not going to last. It's not going to last. We always see that this is not forever. He's not going to stay emperor forever. Okay, so we now move on to the next part of the story. And meanwhile, he's become emperor over the entire world. Now he has a change of mind. What happens to the poor pauper? See, the poor pauper does not have the character of his wife. She is the people of she's the chosen people. She's the woman of Torah. And he is now looking at station. He's looking at this world. She sees Hashem. She sees nothing in the next world. That's why she doesn't sin. She didn't sin. She had this trial, and she had 7 levels of purification. He didn't have levels of purification, not like his wife did, and not like the merchant did. He got everything on a platter. Why did he get everything? By virtue of his wife and his beautiful daughter. He didn't do anything to deserve that. We don't see any extraordinary talent. It's not like the simple one, the clever one, when the simple one maintained his simplicity, maintained his emunah, maintained his trust in Hashem. Not this guy. Not this guy. The pauper, now that he's emperor, he decides that he doesn't want to make a match with he doesn't want to uphold his wife's thing, and he doesn't want to make a match because, I'm going to go down to a lowly merchant. Hey, before, mister, that merchant was giving you dinner. That merchant was giving you a shirt to wear. That merchant was giving you a coin so you could buy something for Shabbat. And now you're looking down at him? He's a lowly merchant? He's a very high merchant. very high merchant. This is Pharaoh again. Now he's imitating Pharaoh. Pharaoh says, what he said to Moses, he says, who is Hashem that I should listen to him? And so the pauper, who's new, he's a nouveau riche, new emperor. Okay, it says, what's my wife? What are oaths? So what if she made an oath? What if it doesn't affect me? She made an oath on holiness. She made an oath on 7 pools of holy water. She made an oath. This is an oath, and what's the Kabbalah say? Her oath went up from the lower spheres to the upper sphere of godliness. And are you going to deny all this? No, he doesn't think about it. So as much as he denied it, she kept to her word. She wouldn't listen to anybody. He'd say, "Oh, let's see. We got a good offer from the king of France. We're going to go for the king of this, and the king of Italy wants our daughter." She did not listen to anything. She did not listen to anything. Okay, so we're going to hold up here because we have a whole new mahalach, a whole new act coming up. You're going to see surprising things, but you see, it's very cryptic, but very deep. But the more we dig into it, the more we're going to find. I want to dig into it, but not in a place where we lose our focus. And that's why we're teaching these faster than what other people teach them. I know the people, they teach this one story for a year, but not lose the focus. We have to get, what do we want to derive from this? We want to derive from this now. Let's see the lessons we learned tonight. The lessons we learned tonight is that when we cling to Hashem, that the evil inclination has no power. When we are faced with temptation, and we put temptation aside and we focus on Hashem, temptation has no power. This temptation is all the evil inclination. That even the snake, even if it bites us, like Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa in the Gemara, has no power. And they're showing us that no power, but Rebbe Nachman is telling to focus on Hashem, realize who we are, to use the potential of our divine souls, as we learned in Amunah Hour, the spiritual anatomy, in our introduction to the 13th principle of Amunah that we're now learning on Amunah Hour, that when we focus on our divine soul, that it uplifts evil, it neutralizes evil. Hashem should help us always do the right thing. Join us again next week, Bezrat Hashem, for our second lesson of the merchant and the pauper. And meanwhile, have a lovely weekend. Don't ever forget that Hashem loves you and so do we.